Everything good in life is forged on the anvil of adversity. We want to start a movement of high achievers that have the courage to fashion a life of greatness. A movement of those brave enough to face the fires of self-improvement on the journey to peak expression. Smiths build things. Smiths get the job done. We are all Smiths. Welcome to the All Smith Project, where greatness is forged, not found. The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the All Smith Project. Today's guest is a father, husband, entrepreneur, and ultra runner. He's the founder of Sisu Sana and a true family man. We just got to rip a little bit offline. I'm excited to introduce today Peter Nelson. What's up, man?
Bryce, thank you so much. That was an awesome intro. Kind of gave me some goosebumps. I think like the biggest thing is family first and foremost. And I can't wait to rip on sauna today with you and just see where the conversation takes us.
I'm excited to chat with you. I almost didn't hit the record button because we were having so much fun spitballing back and forth offline. And I was like, we should probably let other people listen to this awesome conversation at some point. But Peter, what's so cool about you and where I want to start the conversation today is when you talk about family, it's not just about your wife and kids. When I first got introduced to the Sisu brand, the Sisu mindset, the Sisu lifestyle, and the Hume heater, I was having a hard time installing. I was having a hard time kind of figuring it out. You'd FaceTimed me directly. Now we have this awesome friendship and connection, but at that time I was stranger danger. And the fact that you took time to connect with me, I think says more about you and the brand in the future than anything else. Where does that come from, man? Like what about you wants to connect and be a part of it when you've got 85 other things to do at all times?
I think it comes down to a decision of if somebody is going to invest their actual resources in you, whether it's time, money, their actual care, you have to be able to pay it not just forward, but you have to genuinely care for that person. And I honestly want to make a massive, massive impact in people's lives from a health perspective and a relationship perspective. And if it is as simple as jumping on a call, or is as simple as jumping on a FaceTime call, or shoot a text message and troubleshoot something, or as simple as you and I be able to jam for 5 minutes about, hey, let's put the temp sensor here, let's put the controller there. And it gives you the trust and it gives you the perspective and understanding like, hey, this is how it needs to be done. And I'm going to have success with this setup. And I'm going to have this for a very, very long time. That is what I'm most interested in because I know it's going to provide massive return on your health long-term if we just do it the right way the first time. Mm-hmm. And when you FaceTime me, why would I not pick that up? Or if somebody's calling, why would I not pick that up? Because I know that on the receiving end, or I should say on the caller's end, they have an issue. Let's solve the issue together. If I don't know if I don't have the solution to the problem, well, guess what? I'm going to have a team behind me that I'm going to be able to leverage to be able to figure out what that issue is, and we'll solve it for you. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to saunas, there's so many working parts. Like there's something bound to happen because it's such a high use item too, where we need to be able to stand behind our product and help fix it for people if needed.
Totally. It's also very apparent that you grew up in a military family. My dad used to say that there's two ways to do things, right and again.
Yeah. I was going to say there's not a wrong. I should say there's never you do it the wrong way. It's you do it the right way, or if you don't do it the right way the first time, you learn, you figure it out, and then you do it again. And if you need to get somebody's help, you do it. But guess what? It's going to get done.
Totally, man. What was your connection with your family and your parents like when you were young that helped foster some of the value systems that you live by now?
So you hinted at one of them. I grew up in a military family. My dad was one of nine, and he had six brothers, and or I should say, he's one of six brothers, and then he's got three sisters. My grandpa was a military officer in the Marines, and my grandma was a stay-at-home mom. And they always had one or two dogs in the house, and they always had a foreign exchange student, and it was a three-bedroom, one bath house in Cleveland, Ohio, which
That's
is a
packed.
very gritty, very blue collar city. And that's where I live. That's where my family is. We're out here on the west side. And then my mom, she's one of four, phenomenal athlete, as was my dad, or as is my dad. And my grandpa was also a officer in the army. And of all my uncles, we've got six officers in total amongst all of our uncles who commissioned. And then a number of my cousins have also either commissioned or got enlisted. And so doing things the right way and doing things at a disciplined and organized manner was always crucial for us. But I don't think that my parents ever lost sight of us being kids along the way. And
Mm.
so they let us really explore like what we were actually passionate about. For me, that was basketball, which I know you and I were able to share that conversation prior about how you played professional basketball. Basketball was my number one favorite thing to do at all times. There wasn't a time of the day I would not want to be outside. There wasn't a time of the year I wasn't going to be outside. If it was 10 degrees outside, I need to shovel all the ice and scrape and pick off all the ice off the driveway to get my shots up. I was going to do it. And
Who was your
then,
favorite player at that time? I'm judging your answer too.
yeah. So I grew up playing, or I grew up watching LeBron James play in Akron, just south of Cleveland. And so
Dang, that's special.
LeBron was making waves in the Cleveland area. So when the hometown hero was able to come in and be part of this absolute terrible franchise that the Cavs were running at the time for a number of 8 to 10 plus years of losing records, there's this glimpse of hope. And being able to watch him navigate those early years, it was always super impressive to me that LeBron, when he was drafted, was 17 years old and was able to perform with such high at such a high standard and at such a high level. People don't realize all the baggage that comes with being a professional athlete and all the clout and everything that the media does to a young individual. And when he's able to do that at 17 years old, it just blew my mind. So
The navigation of expectations. And I'm sure you feel that a little bit now as a business owner, especially as your product continues to improve and gain notoriety. But it's 17 years old versus you're 28 now, right?
28.
Like that's a big gap, right? Like you've experienced a lot more life now taking on that level of responsibility versus at that time it's like, man, you're either going to sink or you're going to swim.
100%. Yeah. And so like round out my childhood, it was really basketball was first and foremost as a kid. It was doing well in school. And if we weren't playing a sport, then you had to work a job. But I played, I did my best to play as high a level as I could in basketball. So I was really engrossed with basketball, being a great student and, obviously partying at the same time in high school with all of your friends. So those were my biggest priorities. And my parents really kept me on the straight and narrow, let me know like if I was doing something wrong, let me correct my mistakes and really own up to the things that I potentially made bad in my life that I could potentially also make good. So those were always opportunities that my parents let me learn from.
Wow, you had some special parents, man. You briefly mentioned just being a kid. And I think there's so much value to that, especially in the way you described it around shoveling snow if needed, finding ways to work on your craft, being able to play. Probably at that time, you weren't texting everybody all the time. You knew where everybody was based on the house that had all the bikes in front of it. And
Best.
I don't know, there's something special to that level of a childlike mindset. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently and sharing it with anybody that'll listen, which is don't let life grind you down too much, right? Like try to maintain that childlike mindset for as long as possible because we never really grow up. We just learn how to act in public sometimes.
You're so right. And I seen or having two kids of our own now and seeing the wonder and the curiosity that our son
Hmm.
has, to me, it really kind of boils down to two things. It's one, kids don't care what other people think. They just do whatever their curiosity and their wonder takes them to. And then I would say the second thing is that they are always doing things that they actually want to do. And
Hmm.
it seems so simple, but when you start working for the man and you start getting paid by the man, and life and the people around you start telling you how to do things, you stop doing what you actually want to do and you become miserable. And that's how people gain weight. That's how people get anxious. And that's how people end up, in my opinion, taking 10, 15 years off their life, is because they
Yeah.
stopped doing the things that actually made the difference for them, and they stopped chasing their curiosity. And so to be able to see that actually galvanized in my son, who's 2.5, and he doesn't care what I think. He doesn't care what his mom thinks. He's just going to go do it. And the things that he's doing, he actually wants to do. It's one of the reasons why kids develop so quickly at these younger ages, is because they don't have limits. Whereas people put these preconceived limits on themselves as they age and as they get more ingrained into society. And that's a problem. That's why I love entrepreneurship and being able to be around other entrepreneurs and high level thinkers, is because they are doing those two things. They are taking action on what they actually want to do, and they're chasing their curiosity. I think that those two things are a recipe for success.
Yeah, I totally agree. And maintaining that level of uniqueness, as you described with your son, I think if you can have just that unique ability to be unapologetically yourself, and you're not trying to live up to societal norms or giving in to societal expectations, you're actually living, you're not just existing. And we've probably heard Rogan and a few other people talk about it, but where people get stuck is they start living slightly outside of their means. They get stuck in the rat race, then they're stuck in a cubicle. They're underneath artificial light. They wake up, they need to abuse caffeine. They're just trying to make it to the pillow at night. And then when they get home, they're typically, wanting some sort of altered state of consciousness. And that's a huge reason, actually, why I love the sauna and ice, because it does provide that. But most people are relying on alcohol for that. And it becomes this cyclical cycle of just living in this fog. And before you know it, 10 to 15 years goes by, weight gain is set in, mood has changed, anxiety and depressive symptoms have set in. And then as a byproduct of not living up to curiosity and pursuing what lights your heart on fire, now you're just living in this miserable drudgery of just sort of putting one foot in front of the other, but not really even doing that well. And I think the way you described it, like, pursue your peak expression and then allow the cards fall where they may. And I think if you do that, you're going to have this level of internal drive and intrinsic motivation that's going to push the needle in the right direction.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think that if we are truly authentic to ourselves, and if you have values that your parents taught you and you acquired more values over time, and when you're authentic to yourself, you express those values without really thinking about them, I think great things happen. And it's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, Sisu was able to get off the ground, and why like my family was able to get off the ground, and like why my relationship with my wife has been able to bode really, really fruitful for us, is because we are truly authentically ourselves, and we pursue the things that we actually want to pursue. Because like you mentioned, they just light us up. And when you feel that emotion kind of come over you when you're doing the right thing, there's nothing quite like that. And that's not something that money can buy. And I think that when
Mm-hmm.
we get really focused on like material wealth and gaining material and things that really are more arbitrary, versus chasing things that are actually fulfilling to us, that don't have a value, an actual dollar amount on it, I think that's where we actually start to make headway in our lives. And I see that bearing fruit every single day with my family, with our kids, my wife, and with our business and my health pursuits. And like those are the things I'm really focused on right now, that I want to focus on. And I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable in those areas and learn from people, but at the same time, um, I'm really, really working at them. Like I genuinely want to work at them because I want them to bear fruit for a very, very long time. And I'm also now in the position where like my kids are watching. So if the kids are watching, Well, guess what? Like they're not listening. They're seeing mom and dad do X, Y, and Z, and they're going to emulate that. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's game on. I have to be doing the right things at all times.
It's this big brother over your shoulder watching your every single move.
But
And
it's
I
the
think
best.
that's like great motivation for sure. One of my really good friends and mentors, he says it like this: success is in the agency of others. And I think you described it similar to that in some fashions. We'll unpack that a little bit more in relation to your business. What was your military experience like, and how'd you find your way into the military?
It's a really good question. Most people haven't asked this, and some podcasts I've been on. So I thought I was going to have a full 20-year career in the Army when I was 10 years old. I was really manifesting it. I would dress the certain way. I would organize my life the certain way. I would go to sleep the certain way. I'd make the bed, the whole thing. And when I got to see my cousin David graduate from West Point and being at that graduation, I said, like, I'm going to be here one day. And so fast forward to junior, senior year, and I was applying to get into West Point and got the congressional nomination. I was getting recruited by Army for basketball. I went for my visit. Things went well. And at the same time, I was also applying for a full ride for Army ROTC, where I could get in as an officer, but also go to a civilian school. And
Hmm.
I ended up choosing the latter and going with the ROTC route because I didn't want to give up being a kid in college. I felt like the being at West Point could have been too militaristic, in my opinion, where it wouldn't let me be as creative as I could have been in a different school. So I was dual enrolled at the University of Kentucky, where my battalion was, and then Center College in Kentucky, which is a D3 school. And I was also studying civil engineering at the time. So I ended up stopping all my college basketball pursuits like right out of the gate because I just felt genuinely so overwhelmed in the process of trying to balance being a starter on the basketball team, a uh, getting a full ride from the Army ROTC program where I'm having to be there every single day for PT in the morning, and then traveling up to the University of Kentucky 1 to 2 times a week, which was an hour plus away, and then trying to balance this rigorous curriculum for civil engineering. It just became apparent that I wasn't grown up enough to really balance it all or be able to take on all this responsibility. So that was a gut punch, and trying to figure out what I was going to do in life at that point. I leaned in more toward the Army, and I ended up transferring school to the University of Akron, which was a half hour south of where I grew up in Cleveland. And when I transferred there, I transferred over my Army ROTC scholarship to the Akron Volunteer Battalion, and that's where I would spend the next 3 years of college. And so along the way, I met my wife the first day at the University of Akron when I was down there. I actually met my girlfriend the very first day that I was down there. And there was something about her that was just like, you are the one. And obviously, fast forward now, we've been married 5+ years. We've been together for 10 now. And her and I had these conversations about military and what life would be like if I was deployed. And she was like ready to go for it. And so was I, obviously. And I got just about a semester out from commissioning, and I ended up getting medically rolled from the Army, where I had a number of concussions and mental issues going on with my brain as a result of these concussions, that the Army decided that it was time for me to exit. And I was really at a low moment in my life there, because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, because now I'm not playing basketball anymore, which I thought I was going to play professionally potentially. And then also at the same time, I thought I was going to have this 20-year career in the Army. So like those are my two professional pursuits. I don't even know what I'm going to do. And so my wife and I had a really deep conversation. I'll never forget it. I was in tears trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do. And that moment is a moment I reflect on very, very often. And it's a large reason of why we are pursuing what we're doing as a family and me professionally and my health journey too, because I'd never want to experience that low point like that again.
Wow, I really appreciate you sharing that, man. There's this this moment in every person's life that kind of stands out where it's like a fork in the road. And it sounds like there were two professional careers that had a roadmap for you. And then all of a sudden, you were punched in the gut. You had a little bit of a pseudo identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of uncomfortable conversations and a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears is typically good stuff.
Always, but in
And
the moment, you never think about it.
not at all. And it's so painful in the moment because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's like it's easy for us to sit here and spitball it, right? Because it's a mystery looking forward and it's science looking back. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense now. But at the time, you're like, what is going on? And there's that famous Emerson quote, which is, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about you. Like when we've spoken every time, you're a fucking trailblazer, man. Like you had these big glamorous plans, and as an entrepreneur, it never works out that way. A plan is great. It makes you feel good. It gives you a little bit of security in the moment. But you got to be able to call those audibles, man. I find it hard to believe that Brady was executing everything that Belichick was whispering in his ear at the time. I mean, I saw a million checks over his time with the Patriots and later with the Bucks. And that's all part of the course. And what I love about it is you never got too high, you never got too low. You stayed relatively even keel. Your wife stood by you. You guys had some really awesome conversations that maybe didn't feel awesome, but as far as the knowledge gathering and being able to practice a little bit of talk therapy, you were able to kind of separate and untangle some of the chaos. And then kind of what came next, man? Like when you on the other side of that conversation, when you guys were trying to figure out, all right, what's the path forward? What's the next actionable that we're going to take to move our life in this new direction?
I think what you just said there at the end was the biggest key. What is the next action? What's the next actionable step to take?
Yep.
So
I want to
people,
jump in real quick because we talked about this offline.
yeah,
Talking about it is not doing the thing. Writing about it is not doing the thing. Thinking about it, dancing about it, manifesting about it. None of those things are doing the thing. You got to do the thing. And I think that is exactly correct what you said. It's the actionable.
it is 100% doing the thing that is going to get you the thing, or it's going to teach you something else if you end up not getting the thing. So for my wife and I, she said, you need to get back to school and finish out your degree. We're going to get married here in a year. We got engaged 6 months prior. You just need to get your degree. Let's get something going again. So I was off of school for a year trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was a personal trainer at the time, trying to make some cash on the side or just some cash to get by. And so I really leaned into that at a local gym here in Cleveland called Black Flag Athletics. And I went from being a personal trainer to coaching classes, then coaching classes to being the general manager. So it was starting to give me some more identity and purpose to the skill sets that I was developing over time as a leader. And obviously health and fitness were a passion at the time and still are. And I went to 5 years ago from being the general manager to 3 years ago buying in and actually getting equity in Black Flag and growing that from 30 members to 400 plus members. It was a genuine awesome business, but not just a business. It was just a great community, and I learned so
Mm-hmm.
much about how to care for people in that time. I learned so much of what to do and what not to do in business based off of the decisions that we were making, and I'll never take those for granted. And so figuring out
30 to 400 plus members, though, man, that's epic. I'm going to definitely poke and pry at that when you're done.
so we went from building this brand and then me at the same time taking double course load to finish out the degree prior to our wedding. I actually ended up graduating 5 days prior to our wedding. And that was, I'll never forget being in that moment. And for whatever reason, the only time I ever cry in life is when I'm reflecting, because I don't think I reflect enough. But I remember being like, holy crap. I was literally what felt like near suicide. I wasn't actually suicidal, but like in that moment, I felt like that to all right, I have a job that I really enjoy. I've crossed out my degree. I'm getting married to the like woman of my dreams, and we're traveling and we're having a good time. It was a crazy night and day experience compared to where I was in those pits. And as reference too, we had 13 commissioning officers in my class at the University of Akron, and we had two of which committed suicide. And
Mm.
those are things that I think about pretty often, and it's hard not to think about because I think that we get so ingrained in the day to day of our lives that you never realize like how much stress is put on soldiers and how much stress is put on leaders in the army. And sometimes it's just too much and it's unfortunate. And my biggest piece of advice I always say to somebody like when they're in a low moment is that you just need to wake up the next day. Focus on your current day and focus on waking up the next day. Like when you wake up the next day, that gives you the new sense of pride, a new sense of opportunity, and this new sense of I can actually grow. I have an opportunity here to make a change in my life. And you just got to focus on the current bit that you're at, that current present moment, and the next day. Don't worry about a year from now, 6 months from now. That will take care of itself based off of your current actions today and tomorrow.
What is something you did as a child that you no longer do as an adult? For many, that answer is play. RX Smart Gear allows for your daily workouts to turn into play and exploration. In my training, the Frevo rope gives me access to a versatile rope that I can take with me wherever I go. On the road, at the beach, to the park, or playing at home, RX Smart Gear jump ropes fit my needs. We at Allsmith trust RX Smart Gear. Their gear is always reliable and gives me peace of mind that I will have top-notch equipment to support my health and fitness journey. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use the discount code ALLSMITH to shop their latest cutting-edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you.
That's great advice, man. Just narrowing the focus to more of a short-term goal, trying to allow the anxieties of the future to dissipate a little bit, and then also just sheer presence, holding space for them to let them know that you're there. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not always fixing. Sometimes it's just, hey, I've been there before. I'm with you. Let's just only focus on waking up tomorrow. And I
Yeah.
think that's really great advice for people. I was actually listening to Simon Sinek talk about it the other day, and he feels insurmountable pressure sometimes because of everything he's done with Start With Why and Find Your Why and the professional speaking and his amazing abilities to metaphorically communicate things that really resonate with people, very similar to like a Jordan Peterson. And he was talking about loneliness and how as you start to elevate within the world of, entrepreneurship or fame or societal's version of success, it's lonely up there. You're misunderstood. People don't understand. They have this version of you that you feel like you have to live up to. And we're not equipped as a society to know what to say. And sometimes it's, I have a hug for you. Sometimes it's the holding of a hand. But Peter, you and I can both relate to this. The sauna is a great tool for that because you don't always have to talk in there. The heat can be such a healing mechanism. The heat shock proteins, the bonding through adversity, the intimacy of just being in an enclosed space that you feel safe in. And there's so many other intangibles that are successful attributes for those battling silent battles that heroically they're not speaking about and they're burying down, which is based on worrying about what other people are probably thinking, and also just being conditioned as leaders and people at the top that, hey, we don't express weakness. We're here to serve. We're here to, put the weight on our back and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And that works until it doesn't work anymore, right? We're conditioned to think work hard, self-reliance is everything. And that only works until it stops working. And I really appreciate you sharing that because I think it's a great segue to how did you ultimately find your connection to sauna? And when you were working at the gym, had a manager role, you owned it for a while. I'm sure you had some sauna experiences in there. How did you ultimately find that as a tool, and did it help you with your concussions from the military?
We had a customer come in, or a client come in, who went to an XPT experience when they were in Kauai, where they went to Laird Hamilton's house and they saw this awesome barrel sauna. And when the client came back home, him and I chatted a bit, and he ended up deciding to buy a barrel sauna for his backyard. And in the process, found out that there wasn't a dealer for this manufacturer that also was the same manufacturer of Laird's sauna in Ohio. So the way that this sauna manufacturer went was that it wasn't, you could go directly to the manufacturer to buy. It was more a B2B play, which meant that you would basically create your own wholesaling company, and then you could drop ship their saunas to the customer's home. So we both decided, like, hey, this would be a great opportunity for us to partner together on this small side hustle to be able to affect people positively in a great way with getting them their own saunas in their own backyards here in Ohio. And this was about 3 years ago. And at this time, we were selling maybe one a month or so, which was good. I mean, it's just like good cash on the side. You know, I'm at the time 24, 25 years old. It was fun. It was something different, and it wasn't just in the gym space. And we got to a point where COVID hit, and then there was all these surcharges on wood. There was 11K minimum orders. There were 11 to 12-month lead times. The quality of the craftsmanship was decreasing. There was a lot of red flags, and we ended up hitting a stretch of 12 straight months without a single sale. And so,
It's painful.
yeah. And now, granted, we had income outside of that to be able to live our lives, but it was still disheartening because we were spending some energy on this business to bring sauna to people. And in the process, this was February of 2022. Nick and I, my business partner was Sisu, and I went on an early morning trail run around 5 a.m. And we always would get together to work out in the mornings prior to the kids waking up. That was just like our time, as you know, what we call dad hours, to get our work in before the kids wake up. So we get on this run, and him and I both kind of looked at each other and said, you know, we've got these other endeavors that we're focused on. This is not panning out well for us. Maybe it's time to close up the dealership and put our energy elsewhere. And so we both came to a verbal agreement early on in the run that was going to happen. Then 10 minutes later on that same run, we both looked at each other and we pulled the conversation back a bit and said, what was actually the problem with this dealership? Why was it not succeeding? And we pinpointed 10 different variables that were all very controllable deliverables if we went into manufacturing ourselves. And we started to explore that idea a little bit more on the front. And I remember there was one moment where we both thought to each other that, are we in over our heads? Is this crazy to say, like, we'll go into manufacturing? This is going to be a crazy startup cost. I mean, do we actually want to spend the time on manufacturing, getting this off the ground? And at that moment, we just decided, well, if we're going to do this the right way, we got to freaking do it. So we immediately made some calls and got led into meeting our manufacturing partner, where we're now producing Sisu Saunas handcrafted out of Amish country in Ohio. And we have been since August of last year. And it's so fun to reflect back upon that experience of how we got introduced to sauna, and then being a dealer, and then now manufacturing. We got to see it from the consumer side, what was great and what wasn't great. We got to see it from the dealership side as a wholesaler, where we're drop shipping great, beautiful saunas to people in Ohio. We got to see it from the great and the bad. And we took all these experiences and applied it toward manufacturing and really creating our own sauna brand. We're creating our own sauna brand around relationship driven experiences, around truly hot experiences, and making it much more simplistic for the consumer.
Wow, man. It's so cool to hear you share the founder story a little bit and how it happened on a run, and this toggling between let's shut it down or no, let's go all in, let's go pro. And there's a quote here that I want to share with you. I thought about this a lot yesterday, and you were the first person that came to mind. And it goes like this. I think the winner's mindset sits in the uncomfortable place between two surface level contradictions. extreme paranoia in the present, and unshakable faith in the future. The tension between the two makes someone hard to beat today and hard to outlast tomorrow.
That's a
And I
great
think that's the tension that you guys experienced a little bit on that run. And I actually can very much relate to Nick because I was up at Laird's house in Malibu, not in Kauai,
Mhm.
and they had an XPT experience that I was a part of. And I just remember what I felt in the sauna was so cool. And then being able to participate in the contrast therapy, which I know has its benefits, gets outplayed a little bit on social media, but also has like a really cool natural high that kind of comes with it based on the vasoconstriction and the vasodilation. But at that time, I just remember, I think the company that I connected with was Nordic Sauna. And I was
Mhm.
like the annoying, like fly on the wall. Like, how do I get one of these? How do we do this? And they're like, well, you got to call the rep. Then we got to see the dimensions. You got to see what type of wood that you want. And then you got to pick the appropriate heater. And we only do custom saunas. You got to get on the phone with us. You go through like 17 different online communicators. The left foot doesn't know what the right foot's doing. You don't really get a clear, concise price point. So you're like trying to put all these random things in your cart to piece together something that we don't really know what it is. And then you get to the end and they're like, yeah, we can have that to your house in about 3 years. It'll be $17,000. And we can't guarantee anything. The wood might rot and the heater might go out. And oh, yeah, you're going to have to pay an electrician an absurd amount to make sure that you can hardwire it into your house because we're not really sure about the voltage of the heater. And you're like, and at that time, I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to move to an apartment that has a sauna. And then I moved to an apartment that has the sauna. Half the time it doesn't work. There's sanitation issues. And then you have like every public sauna has this. Tell me you've seen this. The guy that comes in the headphones, he's like the UFC fighter playing the music as loud as possible while you're trying to like peacefully breathe. And he's like shadow boxing. He does that for like 5 minutes, opens the door as wide as possible, lets all the heat out. And then like the next guy comes in and he's like fat, out of shape, hasn't worked out, but thinks that like only sauna therapy is going to solve his problems. And he just like sits there butt naked and it's just incredibly uncomfortable. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I think I've experienced this enough that I want to try to put one at my house.
Yep. That's typically how it works, I feel like. But
Oh, man.
I will definitely say that your experience with that whole process from, to me, the whole customer journey from starting to think I want a sauna to actually pulling the trigger, that is the exact reason why we started this company. It was terrible through and through. There's 8 million steps. There's so many customizations. You don't know what you actually need as a sauna buyer. I just need somebody to tell me what I need and give me the price. Let's skip 15 steps. I want to be able to go somewhere on a website, be able to see a model that is attractive, that has all the things I need to have success with, and give me the price. I want to buy the cart and I want it to be here in a month. And so that was the experience that we wanted to create, because there were so many issues in that journey where you could lose a customer and it's not scalable, but more, way bigger than that. How am I going to impact somebody's life the right way and be able to actually gain traction on somebody's health if I'm making it so fucking hard for them?
Mm-hmm.
15 steps to get them to actually buy what they want to buy. Let's make it
And
way
that's
more.
the big thing with Sisu is you're actually trying to positively impact people's lives. You're not just trying to make a quick sell.
100%. I tell people this all the time. We are going to be 100% transparent. We'll be authentic to the brand, authentic to the wood, authentic to the heater, and the whole thing. We are going to tell you the truth. We'll tell you exactly how it's going to look and how it's going to feel. We're going to tell you how the assembly process is going to be. We're going to be extremely upfront. And I want you to know that as a buyer and as somebody who's going to invest in a sauna. Somebody once said that a sauna is like a boat. When you're investing into a boat, you're kind of just throwing your money away and it's not going to appreciate and whatnot. And I thought that was bull crap. The reason being is that nearly every person that I know that has a Sisu Sana has galvanized new relationships in a way that has become fruitful for them, not just in family life, but also in business. And I'm sure you see that with your setup in your backyard. It's not necessarily just the benefits from sauna, but it's what the sauna does as a vehicle to other things in your life that could bear massive fruit for you. And those are things that I've seen in my personal lifetime and time again. Some of the best ideas that we've gotten off the ground with Sisu happen as a result of our experience inside the sauna. The same thing can be said about trail running too. I met some of the best people I've ever met in my life on the trails, and I create a lot of solitude in those times in both the sauna and the trails. But it gives me an ability to be able to unlock new ideas and to be able to potentially execute on them.
That's special, man. How did you and Nick land on the name Sisu? Where did that kind of come from, and what does that term mean to you?
So in Finland, there is one sauna for every two people in Finland. So when you factor that in, nearly every single household has at least one sauna. There's a number of households that have 1 to 2 to 3 saunas, one wood burning, one electric, one outside, one indoors. There's this
Mm.
whole thing, but it's a lifestyle. The other thing about Finland is that it is one of the most overcast skies in the entire world, meaning that they get some of the least amount of sunlight out of any population. But Finland is known as the happiest nation in the world. And so, like,
Mm.
what is the common denominator? So, if you look at the factor of for every two people, there's one sauna and there's overcast, but people are getting together after their dinners, after their parties, and they're coming together every single night as tradition in the sauna. Maybe there's something there that the heat does to people that galvanizes real rich, fruitful relationships. And so in the Finnish culture, sisu is a concept that we don't necessarily have one word for here in the English language, but rather what it refers to, if it's translated literally from Finnish to English, is from within. But then as you expand it out, it's perseverance, bravery, tenacity, and grit. And so those qualities and those values and those actions are this way of life in Finland where they experience adversity. It's not warm all the time. It's typically cold. It's typically wet. It's typically overcast. It's something that the Finns embody that is giving them some sort of traction and success and fulfillment that we don't necessarily prioritize here in the United States. And it's something that we wanted to bring from Finland, where the birthplace of sauna was, and bring it here to the United States and get more people to actually experience. So our mission is very, very simple with Sisu. It's that we want to live and share the Sisu lifestyle because a literal thriving and healthier world matters. And so if we could get more people to, be able to be more resilient, to be brave, to have tenacity, to be able to display grit, to be able to live a more healthier life, I feel like we're going to do the right thing long term, and we'll be able to impact the most amount of lives. And that's why we started this business.
Move fast and break shit. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer. The zipper pocket is an absolute game changer. I go from training at the gym directly to meetings, running errands, or prepping for podcasts. The LSKD tribe has become true family, and we are excited to continue to develop our community. Shop now at lskd.com and use code ALLSMITH. We chase the vibe here at AllSmith. Let's all become 1% better every day.
No, I totally agree, man. It's so cool to hear you describe it that way. We're seeing so much great data coming out from specifically Andrew Huberman. Dr. Rhonda Patrick is huge on her sauna research. Peter Attia talks about it a lot.
Yep.
And there's so many great elements to it. Can you help provide a little bit of education? Because so often our society is skewed based on price. And somebody's going to hop through Costco, or they're going to jump on Amazon, and they're going to be like, oh, infrared. I heard that penetrates the cells a little bit better. You and I both know, like, it doesn't really get hot enough to elicit the heat shock proteins that you really need to have a lot of the benefit. But the older data and the older research kind of shows that. How do you educate and differentiate between the infrared and their traditional dry sauna that uses the hot rocks and the steam coming from something like a home heater?
So Peter Attia, Andrew Huberman, Rhonda Patrick, all of them continue to put out these awesome talks on podcasts that all reference back to this one main research article and paper that was produced out of Finland, where they got a number of people into saunas between 176 degrees to 210 degrees. And in that environment, they were able to measure very specific effects that sauna and heat stress was having on the person. Now, they did not, and they could not actually quantify and measure effects below 176 degrees. Now, the reason why this is key, and this is why infrared saunas up to this point has been truly all marketing and not enough research. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years, there could be more research that comes out that infrared is actually beneficial. But infrared sauna can only get up to about 140 to 150 degrees max. So what that tells you is that near infrared wavelengths are being emitted from the infrared panels inside your sauna in an infrared, where it penetrates the skin and into the tissue. What that does is it increases circulation, which jacks up your heart rate and it induces a sweat. You have to be in that environment for about a half hour to an hour for you to actually see it, to see real circulation benefits and heat benefits from that. You are not necessarily going to experience a heat shock protein response in an infrared sauna unless your body is able to get to about 102 degrees, which is an actual exercise-induced fever. And so there's no real one way to actually measure that accurately. But what we are finding is that in an infrared sauna, it's not necessarily the infrared heating up the room and then the room heating up your body. It's actually the near infrared wavelengths that are actually heating up the body itself. And then your body naturally raises its body temperature. When it comes to traditional saunas, the coils or the stone, if it's in a wood burning sauna, or I should say the fire, heats the stone. So the coils heat the stone, then the stone heats the room. The reason why this works is that the environment becomes hot enough to where you could get it up above 176 degrees, which is the minimum threshold that has been studied for us to be able to get not just the circulatory benefits, but all the amazing cognitive, muscular, and nervous system based benefits that we could actually experience from sauna. And the reason why I had a problem with the majority of the sauna industry up to this point is that heaters don't get hot enough for the body to continue to adapt to the environment. What I mean by that is that a typical economy heater that you would get from a Costco, that you would get from a Home Depot, that you would get from a number of other sauna brands, they actually turn off at 185 degrees. So the UL rating that they have is certified up to 185 degrees, at which point there's an auto shut off. If you were to put everything together to manufacturing spec with a temp sensor. Whereas when we were creating this company with Sisu, we knew that if somebody is going to try to acclimate and adapt to the heat long term, they need to be able to get hotter than 185 degrees, especially if the research that is peer reviewed that is coming out is indicating that we need to get up to 215 degrees and some of the highest adapted athletes and people out there. So that's when we realized that there's really one heater in the world outside of, there's one heater in the world in the electrical space that could get up to that temperature. That's Hume. But all these wood burning saunas, you can get up to 230, 240 degrees. It just takes a while. But we knew that there needed to be a convenience factor. So we partnered with Hume exclusively, where we're like, we are going to take the Hume heater, and every single Sisu sauna is going to have this Hume heater, because I can now turn it up to 230 degrees remotely from my phone whenever I want, put it onto a schedule, and make it very convenient for myself to get this heat adaptation that I want. So when you look at the benefits, one of the things that stands out to me, because I have a personal, there's a personal side of this to me, because I've had two grandparents that have had Alzheimer's and dementia, actually three if you include my wife's side. Sauna and heat stress specifically, when we get above 176 degrees and more closer to 185 to 200 degrees, it helps develop this composition in our brain called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which is actually fantastic for the brain, which actually reverses the effect of Alzheimer's and dementia. And if it's somebody that has it running in their family, it actually delays the effects and delays the response of that actually occurring. And I thought about that a little bit. And I was like, man, there's got to be other benefits beyond that my older counterparts could benefit from. And then I looked at the aerobic side of things. Once we get above the 185, 200 degrees, and I get in this very stressful environment now with the sauna, it's not as rest or digest or as relaxing. It's now fight or flight. I want to get out of the sauna. My heart rate elevates up to zone 2, which means I'm at 60 to 70% of my max heart rate. The reason why that matters is that it's not only getting my the circulation of blood and new nutrients to my body, it's now creating this foundational strength for my heart to be able to be in more stressful environments. So I'm an ultra runner. I know that zone 2 training is extremely beneficial. And if I know that I need to get 4 to 5 sessions weekly of around 45 minutes to an hour in, but I'm able to get about 120 minutes a week alone from sauna therapy, that means I could put less load on my joints and just more time in solitude, where more people in the United States need to be in general, because we're always on our phones. And that's a problem. So you get the aerobic side, you get the neurological side, the the protein and the muscular side to me is also really fascinating. So there's some studies that are showing protocols of just one time weekly in the sauna. We are doing 30 minutes on, 5 minutes of cooling, repeated 2 to 3 intervals, and then you do it again later in the day, has an increase of 16 times of growth hormone as compared to if you weren't to do anything at all. And that's just one
Wow.
time weekly. And what's so crazy about that is we're just realizing that heat stress could have such a profound effect on our ability to produce muscle and produce growth hormone in a way that's just going to drastically increase energy for people, increase dopamine, increase testosterone, but then also at the same time, to me, like it increases your outcome and your output of life. And the more I can be present as a dad, the more I can be present as an entrepreneur, the more I can be present as a husband, the better I'm going to be. And so when the sauna is able to have these profound effects off of one session or 2 sessions, why wouldn't I spend more time in the sauna?
Wow, man. There's so much great knowledge and juicy bits for us to pull out in what you just described. Just to go over it one more time, did you say 30 minutes on, 5 minutes cooling, 3 rounds of that, and let's
Two,
say you do that at 9 a.m. Then you take a little break and you do the same protocol, let's say at 6 p.m. That can have a huge release of natural human growth hormone.
yes, it would be. It's a 2 to 3 cycles of each, twice in the same day, with a large amount of rest in between, and no other sauna sessions at any other point of the week. And so
Hmm.
what that's done, it basically, I mean, it's a marathon of sauna essentially, and you also have to have the
Mm-hmm.
time to be able to complete it. But you're looking at around 2 hours or so in this hot environment. The cooling periods can be a lukewarm shower, cold shower. It could be it could be cold exposure. But the thing that you have to be very careful about with contrast therapy is, and this is contradictory to what you're seeing on Instagram and social media, is you don't want to go right from this hot environment right to the cold environment without any buffer. A true contrast session, you need natural cooling to occur. So when you step out of the sauna, actually let your body cool down naturally, give it a couple minutes, and then get into your cold immersion device, and then get out and then enjoy like 1 or 2 more minutes of heating up naturally, and then get in the sauna. That's the actual way to go about it. Otherwise, you'll get very, very dizzy, and there can be some negative effects on that.
Totally, man. Dude, it was so cool to see you rip on that for a little bit. I got lit up and I was just pumped to hear all the different benefits, especially the neurological ones. I think that's incredible for people fighting different forms of Alzheimer's, and very cathartic and personally fulfilling knowing that you have a tool that you can pay forward so other people don't have those same negative experiences. I'm pumped to see you continue to grow, man. We talked a little bit offline how you guys are blowing up, man. You're going from a small business to a startup, and you're making some really great impacts in the world. How does it feel to know that that conversation early on in the trail run with your business partner is evolving and floating to the surface and becoming real?
I think, to me, when I reflect back upon it, this is just what God's plan was for us. And I feel like we're executing on what our values are what we want to make of the world in the healthscape, because we know it's a declining healthscape and we need more people to thrive and feel healthier. And I genuinely feel like we are exactly where we need to be right now. And wherever we're going to go, that is where we are meant to go based off of our ability to execute and stay true to ourselves. So, truthfully, to answer your question, I'm both humbled and at the same time, I'm extremely grateful, because I feel like we have a great opportunity to make a genuine impact that isn't just about dollar amounts. It's about actually making change in the world.
I love that so much, man. Well, thanks so much for spending time with me today and unpacking some of the story of the Sisu lifestyle today, man. What you got going on in this holiday season? Are the kids starting to get excited for Thanksgiving coming up here soon?
Yeah, I don't think the kids really know what's going on. They're so young, but they do know that all the grandkids are getting together, which means, we've got 8 grandkids on the one side and they're all like wind up toys. So you basically just put them all in the same room and it's like a science experiment. So that'll be fun. And looking forward to some more trail runs over the next few days, and just kind of unwinding a little bit from business and be able to decompress a bit before we really, really take a deep dive into our Black Friday sales.
Totally, man. You said something that I thought was very profound, and that was the journey of entrepreneurship has the highest highs and the lowest lows. And you're learning the lesson right now of being able to have the separation between Peter, the founder of Sisu, and Peter, the husband, the father, the trail runner, and the human being. How's that toggling been and that gentle compartmentalization been as you evolve into this next chapter?
It is probably the biggest challenge. And the reason being is that I love what I do with Sisu so much. It's undeniable how much I love what we're doing and the impact we're making on people. The hard part for me is knowing that, all right, it's time to go get the kids from the sitter. It's time to throw on my dad hat. It's time to throw on my husband hat. It's time to really shut off. And I'm doing that in practice now. I truly like put my phone down for the night. It's a way I don't take it upstairs to my bedroom. And when it comes like a certain time of the day, it's off. If I have to work a little bit more, it's after the kids go down and after my wife and I have been able to spend quality time together. To me, business is great until you start to let it own you. And if I own the business, I am creating a lifestyle that is best for myself, but more importantly, my family. And that's why one of the reasons selfishly why we created the business too, is that I want to see my kids and spend as much time with my kids thrive. And same thing with my wife. And to me, being able to prioritize that time with my wife and my kids is always going to be priority number one. And then it's the business. But the way I'm able to spend my time with my wife and the kids is by being an entrepreneur and having that flexibility. If I was working the typical 9 to 5, I wouldn't have that flexibility and it would be a lot tougher.
You're a special human, man. I'm thankful that Eric Hinman bridged the gap between the two of us and we could connect today in Storytell. I know this isn't going to be the first time that we connect. I look forward to spending some time with you in person, and I'm very appreciative that you carved out a really special moment for us to storytell and share the founder's story. And it's just the beginning, man. I'm excited to see where this journey goes.
And same for you. I'm so excited to see your involvement with this podcast and your ability to get the best out of people with questions and ways to. I think you're creating this community through podcasting and the way that you're able to get the best out of people through their storytelling. That you have a very, very like specific skill set that I think is going to absolutely crush with your podcast as you go forward. So I'm super grateful to be a part of it. And if there's anything I could ever do, like, don't hesitate to reach out, man. But I think you've got an absolute gem here with your podcast, and I'm super grateful for it.
I appreciate those words, man. Vulnerability breeds vulnerability. For those of you listening, thank you for tuning in on another episode of the All Smith Project. Please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And remember, greatness is forged, not found. Till next time, guys.